Growing up as a child in my house, my parents showed me affection often. There was always a hug given to me and my sister, or my parents told us they loved us. There was generally a kiss on the forehead or a kiss on the cheek. But as I got into high school and I left for work, or I would go to school in the morning and take my sister and drop her off, before I walked out of the door every day, both of my parents gave me a hug. And I did not realize how much a hug meant in my house growing up until I was on my own. A hug meant everything. Though my parents often told me that they loved me, the hug they gave showed that love to me. And it developed me in a way that changed me. And it still affects and impacts my life today. Hello, my name is Pike Davis, and today I want to talk to you about touch communication and how this can impact your life. And so touch communication is often primitive. Mr. Joseph DeVito, the author of Essentials of Human Communication in the 8th edition, notes that touch develops before the other senses. A child is stimulated by touch even in the womb. And so we experience touch in the womb as we are developing inside of our mothers. This is why touch communication is so essential and vital to human communication. Before cell phones or computers, before television, radios, before the telegraph, humans communicated by verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And before they had words, they communicated with gestures and signs to be able to communicate between each other. And so this is another reason why communication through touch is so vital, even to us today. It is relevant for my life and for your life also. And so how you communicate with touch or through touch can impact those around you, your friends, your family, your coworkers, or maybe even your significant other. And so today we will briefly explore touch communication meanings, touch communication in education, intercultural touch communication, and communication of emotions through touch. So touch communication meanings. Mr. DeVito, who I introduced to you earlier, in his book gives 5 meanings of touch communication. These are the 5 most important touch communication meanings. First, touch may communicate positive emotions. And we will explore this more later. But a hug can communicate that you love someone without you having to say, I love you. Similarly, a smack in the face to someone can also communicate that you're angry. Or maybe you had a sibling growing up and you punched your brother or your sister in the arm, showing them that you are angry. Second, touch often communicates playfulness. Think about tickling in elementary school, how that often communicated playfulness and flirting, or maybe you still do that today. Footsie underneath the table as you flirt with someone communicates to the other person playfulness. Or maybe you're laughing with someone, and you gently nudge them, and that communicates further your playfulness, showing them that you're not making fun of them. You're being playful in your laughter. Touch may also control or direct the behaviors, attitudes, or feelings of another person. Think about a time when you had to communicate something serious to somebody. Maybe you had to grab them by the hand, or by the arm, or you had to grab them by the shoulder so that you could get their attention and focus it on you. So touch may control or direct people's behaviors or their attitudes or their feelings. Mr. DeVito also says that ritual touching centers on greetings and departures. How important is a handshake to you? My father always told me that a handshake was so important that sometimes you can tell almost everything about a person through their handshake. Actually, I had a boss in high school who hired a young man based solely on his handshake, not on his talents, his abilities, his work experience, but simply because he shook his hand firmly and through that communicated respect to him. And lastly, Mr. DeVito says that task-related touching occurs while performing some function. That is, communicating through touch, but not communicating emotion. Your touch, your communication through touch has some task-related function to it. Your workplace is loud, and so you grab someone or you tap them on the shoulder, indicating that you want them to come closer to you. You're communicating to them. You need them to come closer so that you can speak into their ear. Or maybe you're directing someone, and so you gently touch them on the back, or you grab their shoulder and you point them in the right direction. That's task-related touching, and that does not have anything to do with emotion. And so, these are the most important meanings of touch communication. Touch communication impacts our everyday lives at home and at work, but oftentimes touch communication goes beyond just those places. And so we will explore touch communication in education. Panagiotis Stamatis, a researcher and professor from the Department of Sciences of Preschool Education and Educational Design at the University of the Aegean, Rhodes, which is an island in Greece, in an article entitled Nonverbal Communication and Classroom Interactions, a Pedagogical Perspective of Touch, from 2011, says touch is our most social sense. And he says, touch is the most important of all senses. It stimulates language and communication. And so Mr. Stamatis also says in the same article, moreover, proximity and touch reflect positively to academic, personal, and social ability of any child. And so thus the appropriate touch in a classroom can stimulate the ability for a child to learn and to develop. According to Mr. Stamatis, appropriate touching in early childhood relates to the development of positive feelings in both teachers and students. So how important is it, or would it be, that your children, either present or future, actually like school and have positive feelings about their education, or they would develop better in their education? How important would it be that students associate knowledge, learning, academia, teachers, or professors with positive feelings because of touch communication in classrooms as children grow up? The neglect of touch communication in a child's life actually can communicate just as much as if touch communication existed. And sometimes that impact of not having touch communication in their lives can impact or damage their development more than we think, or sometimes that we don't think about. And this is maybe something that you have experienced in your life even today. Touch communication does extend beyond our normal everyday lives and the classroom, however. So touch communication can reach abroad, all over the world. And that's why we're going to explore intercultural touch communication. One of the most important aspects of touch communication is learning how to communicate through touch to people from different cultures than our own. More than likely, we will all communicate with someone from a different culture at some point in our lives. And so, McDaniel and Anderson, from a field study in 1998, published in the Journal of Nonverbal Communication, say this: knowledge of how touch is employed and interactions among peoples of different nations is particularly critical to effective communication. It is critical to effective communication. Knowing how to communicate with touch or through touch to people of different cultures and different nations. Their study mostly focused on the patterns of touch communication in 5 geographical regions of the world. That is, the northeast and southeast regions of Asia, the Caribbean Latins, Northern Europe, and the United States. Their study of touch from people in those regions found that touch does vary systematically between individuals from different nations. And this is on page 68 of their study. Data further demonstrated that latitude of origin, meaning latitude on the globe, wherever they are, could not be used as a predictor of the number of body areas an individual may touch in a public setting, which refers to proxemic communication, how close you are to other people. That is an important thing to know in touch communication. How close can you get to someone in a specific culture, whether they are an individualistic culture or a collectivistic culture. For example, in the United States, we generally stay about 3 foot apart from each other because we respect each other's space because we are in an individualistic culture. And so you may find yourself one day communicating with someone from another country. Or maybe you are in another country and you need to communicate with those people in that nation. This may violate their expectations of touch, their cultural and social norms, their social expectations. And thus, how you communicate with them is going to be broken, and they may not understand what you need them to understand. In the workplace, you may have a diverse colleagues from different nations, from different cultures. Maybe they even grew up in America. They are American citizen, but their parents and grandparents grew up in a different culture than your own. Thus, they will have different touch communication expectations. And so, how you understand touch communication with other cultures and how you understand and use touch communication can completely change the experience between you and that person. So we have seen that touch communication has 5 most important meanings, that it influences children in classrooms positively, that understanding other culture norms and understandings are important to know, and finally we're going to bring it home a little closer in our personal responsibility in communicating emotions to those around us and to those we care for and who care for us. And so one of the most vital aspects of touch communication is how to communicate through touch and communicate emotion to people. According to Herdestein, Holmes, and McCullough, who are professors and researchers at DePauw University in the Department of Psychology, and Keltner, who is a professor and researcher in the Department of Psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, in an article entitled The Communication of Emotion via Touch in 2009, the current study provides evidence that touch communicates distinct emotions and does so in a robust fashion. We documented that touch communicates at least 8 emotions: anger, fear, happiness, sadness, disgust, love, gratitude, and sympathy. That's a very wide range of emotions that touch can communicate to other people. And so that can have an impact on how you communicate with people, whether you're trying to persuade them, whether you're trying to inform people, whether you're trying to have a debate, or maybe you're arguing something that is very important to you, something you believe or something you value. Touch communication can communicate emotions and thus improve how you communicate in those areas, whether you're persuading, informing, or debating. personally in your life? What if you learn how to effectively communicate that you are frustrated or you are angry with your significant other or with your children in an appropriate manner? What if that seemingly insignificant hug to your significant other or to your children or to your family means so much more than what we often think about? What if a literal slap in the face means so much more than just disrespecting someone? What if it damages and destroys relationships in ways that we don't understand because touch communication is that powerful? What if you, as you begin raising children, or even as you're raising children now, showed them that you love them more than your words through a hug, or a kiss on the head, or a kiss on their cheek? Or maybe as you told them that you love them, you grabbed them by their arm gently, so that they know they are cared for, that they are loved, that there is a deep familial intimacy between you and them. What if you aren't able to speak from the tears welling up in your eyes and your throat being choked so much so that you couldn't speak, but you could communicate those emotions to the people around you who care for you? And so, how would it be different if what we attached to touch communication as insignificance, what if we understood that in different ways? How you communicate through touch can change and impact your relationships with your family, your friends, your children, your significant other, your boss, your coworkers. It can deeply impact these areas of your life. And so you must understand that touch does communicate emotion effectively. And how you communicate and how to communicate with people through touch in an effective manner will impact your life today. It is relevant for you today. And so I didn't just present this to you for a grade. I'm not just presenting this to you to give you a bunch of information that you can't use. This is relevant for you today. It can change and transform how you communicate with those you love, those you care for, those you are trying to persuade. Maybe that's your job. Maybe that's what you get paid to do for a living. Maybe you're wanting to be a salesman. Touch communication can be very effective in that. Maybe you're raising children. This is relevant for you, and it can change how you communicate that you love them. My hope is that you'll use this information to be a better communicator today, and that as you're growing and developing as a professional, this will help and inform how you communicate.